After two glorious weeks on the road, we're unfortunately back at the Apex with another mediocre UFC card. Let's get into it. First fight of the night, Luana Pinheiro taking on Angela Hill. Pinheiro, she's 11-2, 3-1 in the UFC. Did just lose her last fight. Got TKO'd late in the third by Amanda Hebas back in November. Angela Hill, been around the block for a minute. She's 16-13, but she's won 3 of her last 4, surprisingly. I personally think this one's going to go long. Little risky because Pinheiro, although 3 of her 4 UFC fights have gone over 2.5, only 4 of her 13 career fights have gone to a decision. Angela Hill, on the other hand, the queen of going to a decision. Her last 11 fights gone to a decision. Not only that, 29 career fights, 22 of them gone to a decision. Pinheiro is 31 years old. Angela Hill's 39. You got to worry a little bit there. Is Pinheiro going to be able to finish her? I don't think so. I actually favor Angela Hill here, like the odds makers. So I'm going to take the over 2.5. I think this one definitely goes long. It's minus 425. Gonna parlay it with something later. I'll get to it. If you guys are looking for something to take, though, it seems painfully obvious. Angela Hill's already the favorite, and she loves going to a decision. Angela Hill by decision, plus 100. I would be all over that. I feel like that is the most obvious play on this fight. Can't find much value anywhere else unless you guys are in on the dog. You think Luana Pinheiro is going to take it. She's sitting at plus 120 right now. I don't hate it. I just think Angela Hill probably gets it done. So I'd favor the decision at plus 100 more, but up to you guys. Do with that what you will. Up next, Adrian Yanez taking on Vinicius Salvador. So Yanez, he's 16-5. He started his UFC career hot, man. He was 5-0 with 4 KOs. Since then, kind of deflated a little bit. Did lose his last 2 fights by TKO. First to Rob Font, then Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez did leg kick TKO him. Vinicius Salvador, okay, he's 0-2 in the UFC. Not only that, but he won his contract on Contender Series by beating Shannon Ross. And no disrespect to my fellow Aussie brethren, Shannon Ross, but dude lost 5 of his last 6. He kind of looks like shit. So Vinicius, not the best resume. Yanez kind of feels like this is a give me fight for him, trying to get him back on a win streak. 12 of his 21 career fights have ended by knockout. Yanez, that is. Salvador, on the other hand, 15 of his 20 fights have ended by knockout. So this one probably doesn't go long. I'm going to go a little risky here and do the over 1.5. It is minus 145. Going to parlay it with the first fight of the night, and that gets us plus 109. I really like that. The over 1.5, super risky, though. I just mentioned how often these guys knock people out. Yanez, though, 10 of his 21 career fights have hit the over 1.5, so close to half of them. Salvador, a little closer, or a little less close, I should say. 8 of his 20 have hit the over 1.5. So it's definitely a risky play. There's not much value on Yanez by KO. It's still minus money as well. And Salvador can knock him out, considering Yanez has been knocked out in his last 2 fights. So if you guys are looking for anything else to take, I just mentioned Yanez by KO. It's still minus money, so you'd have to parlay it, but it's minus 140. Not too bad. If you guys think this is going to go long, maybe it goes longer than even I think. Over 2.5 is plus 150. And if you're in on Salvador, I just mentioned Yanez has been knocked out in his last 2 fights, and Salvador is a hammer, 15 of 20 ending by KO. Salvador money line straight up plus 275. Not bad value on the dog there. Next fight, Themba Gorimbo taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. So Gorimbo, he's 12-4, including 2-1 in the UFC. Brahimaj is 10-4. He's alternated wins and losses in the UFC. He is 2-2. Interesting thing here. Brahimaj, all 10 of his wins have come by submission. Gorimbo, been subbed twice, as recently as last year in the UFC. So, another risky-ish play here. I'm taking the over 1.5. Risky because Gorimbo, only 6 of his 16 professional fights have gone over 1.5. Brahimaj, only 5 of 14 have gone over 1.5. But here's my logic. So Brahimaj, all 10 of his wins by sub, 9 of those 10 came under 1.5. Meaning if he doesn't get the sub in the first or even, early in the second, he probably doesn't win. In fact, 3 of those losses by decision. The other one was a doctor stoppage late in the third to Max Griffin. So I feel like this one probably goes longer than expected. I don't think Brahimaj is going to be able to get the sub. It does seem obvious though, because he has 10 wins by sub and Garimbo has been sub before. I just feel like I'm favoring Garimbo in this fight, if I'm being honest. So again, I'm taking the over 1.5. It's minus 130. We're going to parlay it with something later. But yo, looking for anything else to take, Brahimaj by sub has to be the most obvious play, plus 165. All of his wins have come by sub. Can't think of an easier bet than that. But if you think it's going to go long, which I kind of do, over 2.5, plus 145. And if you're looking for a nice parlay piece, I mentioned I'm kind of favoring Garimbo in this fight. I think he has to make it go long to win, at least get out of the first round. So I would just take a money line. He's minus 135. You could parlay that with something. Co-main event, lackluster co-main, man. Chaos Williams taking on Carlston Harris. So Chaos, he's 14-3, 5-2 in the UFC. Solid wins and losses. His only 2 losses, Randy Brown and Michel Pereira. So top 20 guys. Michelle has since moved up to 85, but still. Carlston, he's 19-5, 4-1 in the UFC. And his only loss, Shavkat Rakhmonov. So, like, this dude could be a killer. Chaos, he's known for his knockouts. At least I remember him for all of his knockouts. Dude, 9 of his 17 fights have gone the distance, which is crazy to me. Harris, same sort of thing. Despite 4 of his 5 UFC fights not going the distance, 11 of his 24 career fights have. So both of these guys go longer than I feel like their reputation alludes to. But Chaos, he's never been finished. So Carlston, again, close to half of his fights have gone the distance, and Chaos has never been finished. So maybe you want to lean that way. And Carlston has been knocked out twice. Chaos does have 7 knockout wins. And as I mentioned, I remember him for his knockouts. They're fucking vicious. So looking for anything to take, I'm going to ride with Carlston Harris, man. I know it's risky. I know it is. But the odds are close here, and he's a dog. He's plus 120, and I just like him at dog money. I'll take that. Dude's a finisher. And I know I just said half of his fights have gone to a decision, but we know him in the UFC as a finisher. Dude's there for excitement, not here for a good time or long, whatever the fucking line is. You know the fucking stupid shit. Let's go. If you're looking for anything else to take over 2.5 rounds, as I just mentioned, both of these guys go longer than we, at least I remember, plus 145. Chaos by knockout. I said that weird, by knockout. Carlston has been knocked out twice, and Chaos has 7 KOs, man. That's plus 115. And if you're looking for a parlay piece, over 1.5, minus 170. Main event, Edson Barboza taking on Lerone Murphy. Barboza, he's 24-11. He has won 3 of his last 5, and he kind of played upset in his last 2, beating Sadiq Youssef and Billy Quarantillo. Before that, they were kind of both on a streak. Lerone Murphy, though, undefeated, man. 13-0-1, 5-0-1 in the UFC. Did have that draw in his UFC debut. But, dude, 18 of Barboza's 35 fights have ended by knockout, and 7 of Murphy's 13 fights have ended by knockout. So both of these guys love to get knockouts. I will say Barboza has been knocked out 4 times. Murphy, obviously undefeated, never been finished. Take note of that with what you will. Barboza, 8 of his last 10 have gone to the 3rd round or later, though. And Murphy, 6 of his 13 have gone to a decision. So I'm taking the over 2.5. It's minus 240. I'm parlaying it with the Garimbo Brahimaj over 1.5. And that gets us to plus 151. I think there's solid value on that. I'm more worried about Garimbo Brahimaj over 1.5 than I am about this hitting the over 2.5. Either way, that's the play. If you're looking for anything else to take, Barboza as a dog, plus 120. I just mentioned he played upset the last 2 times. Dude's a vet, 35 career fights, 18 of them ending by knockout. I mean, I think there's value. Over 4.5 if you think it's going to go to decision, because I could see this one going real long. Over 2.5 is already minus 250. What did I say? Minus 240. Over 4.5 is plus 140. I feel like there's value there. And I mentioned how often these fights end by knockout and that Barboza's been knocked out 4 times. Lerone Murphy by KO plus 250. If you got the guts to take that, I don't. I kind of favor Edson here. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Just an easy roll.
I'm worth 100,000 like Woodrow. When a ball, call me Wilson. Going overboard at the Hilton.